Well, when I got back from Taiwan, I was going to college, and I had to put myself through school. I had the GI Bill. My wife was working, but not making that much money as teaching in a private school. So I opened up what we call the School of Chinese Karate, because when I got back in the end of 1964, there was only a couple of karate schools around. Nobody had ever even heard of Kung Fu. I asked the guys over there in Taiwan, they never heard of it either. You know, they used the term guoshu. So I was doing a lot of that, and it was like your basic Shaolin, Xingyi, Tai Chi. Some of it was pretty good. I kept some of it. The first actually school I visited was Ed Parker's school in Pasadena, and the end of 1964. He had me show all my Kung Fu stuff, which is mostly forms. And then I went out to dinner with Dan and Yasano and Steve Golden, and they took me out to dinner. And after that, I had students fighting in the tournaments, and Yasano always showed up with some Ed Parker guys to fight. So I knew Dan, and real well I just knew him as Dan, you know. And he called me Timmy. And then in 1967, I saw Bruce Lee perform in the internationals. I thought it was pretty good. I think I'd kind of like to train with him. I liked his ideas of simplicity. Then at that time, though, I was going to college, working on my MFA, and when I graduated and got my MFA in drama and theater arts, Bruce had already left for China, for Hong Kong, to do the movies. So I said, well, I'm just going to go do a Tai Chi. So I went to a Tai Chi school, and the guy had me show my Tai Chi, and then Dan Lee was there. He was his assistant. He came up and said, listen, you're not going to learn anything here because you already know Tai Chi. So, ever heard of Jeet Kune? And I said, yeah, I've been interested in it. He said, well, do you know Dan Yasano? I said, yeah, I know him really well. Well, here's his unlisted phone number. Give him a call. So I called him up. This was like 1971. And I said, hey, and he said, hey, Timmy, yeah, just come on down. It's no big deal. Tuesday night, Thursday night, bring, 16-ounce boxing gloves, and no problem. So I came down with Bob Chapman, who was my first student. So we drove there. I taught school all day long, and we drove there. It was like an hour and a half, 2 hours from my house. And I taught teaching school all day. So when I got there, first thing we did was he warmed up, did exercise, did some basic techniques, and then we put the gloves on. I had 16-ounce gloves. I noticed everybody else had 14 and 12-ounce gloves. But, the first two guys I sparred were Dan Lee and Bob Bremer. Needless to say that I didn't do that well against them. I wasn't terrible, but they obviously knew a lot more about sparring full contact than I did. So from that on, it was like love at first sight, and I just kept going, and kept going, and kept going. And then nobody really knew Jeet Kune Do. It was a very unknown thing. There was a couple of magazine articles and stuff, and then the movies came out, and then Bruce Lee died. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to know about Jeet Kune Do. It became kind of a fan type thing. So we started having summer camps. The first one was in Aspen, Colorado. And the first year, Dan Yasano went and he taught. He taught like two classes, one Kali and one in Jeet Kune Do. Then the next year, he had to do a movie called Sharky's Machine. So he asked me to do this. And the only reason I was able to do it, I was a school teacher. And everybody else had a job. Bob Bremer was a crane operator. Dan Lee was doing stuff, and he was working for Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Everybody else had a job. I think Richard Basilla worked for Continental Airlines. Jerry Poteet was a carpenter. So nobody could get off for actually 6 weeks in the summer, so I did that. And then I started the California Martial Arts Academy and then the Smoky Mountain Camp. So I was able to do that every summer. Then you got to meet people from all over the world, go do seminars and stuff. And that's the name of that tune. And then I was given a certificate, I think in 1974 from Dan, which made me a senior first in the June Fan Kung Fu incident, which was actually Jeet Kune Do. And I've just been teaching ever since, but I kept my job as a high school teacher. So my first books I wrote, because Mito Uehara was head of Black Belt Magazine, and he was a big, supporter of Bruce Lee, and he knew that I knew Xingyi, so he asked me to do some Xingyi books. I did 2 Xingyi books for them. And then I did a couple with Larry Hartzell, and then a couple with Chris Kent, and then one by myself, and then did the Chinatown books, one with Bob Bremer, one by myself, and now I'm doing a new one called The Essence of Jeet Kune Do. And we just finished, I just turned in the edited copy with all the photos in there last week. So just have to go down and do a DVD, and that'll be it.
The Shingy books being in there and everything.
Yeah.
I remember all that. And seeing your articles.
My first article was in Black Belt Magazine, like in the beginning of 1965.
Oh, wow. And so, I mean, so a lot of people that are joining JKD now, they've seen some people that are coming and getting excited about Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do or whatever. And
It goes in cycles.
Yeah, they see movies or they see...
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't understand and might be interested in is after Bruce Lee died, you know, I remember the magazines and there was people getting together and I'd see Linda Lee, pictures of her at some event.
Yeah.
But what was the sort of the evolution of all of this from the backyard days that you were into?
Well, it started, what happened is after Bruce died, then Dan wanted to open up, he didn't want to teach school anymore. But I hoped he could make a living teaching martial arts. So we opened up the Kali Academy. At that time, there were 2 backyard classes. Chris Kent and I think a couple other guys were in that second class. Anyway, he moved that class into the Kali Academy, the Jeet Kune Do class. And it was a closed class. Nobody could even look at it because it was secret. Mm-hmm. Then he put up 4 phases of what he called Jun Fan, Kung Fu, that beginners would learn. They go through the 4 phases, then they would then be voted into the JKD class. You know, people came out of that were, Burt Richardson and, all these kind of guys, Paul Bunak, all those guys came out of that particular thing. And then after a while, after Bruce died, we started having a get-together on his birthday. And then they decided it started getting kind of where people in certain countries were teaching Jeet Kune Do, they didn't know Jeet Kune Do. So we decided that we needed to do something about it, making it more of an educational thing. So we started the Bruce Lee Educational Foundation. And we put together the 3 schools, the Seattle School, the Ulta School, and the Los Angeles Chinatown School, so that people could see what real JKD was about and compare the evolution of the three different eras of it. So we would have protected, a lot of people showed up. It was pretty interesting. A lot of people came from Europe, and then it just kind of grew from there. And then I think after a while, it just sort of died out. After we did one in Amsterdam, and we lost a lot of money, and so that kind of ended it there. There was a problem in how they did it, so that kind of left a sour taste in everybody's mouth because it cost us all money to go over there. We didn't get any reimbursement on that. So that was that, and now we're just doing our own thing. We got our own thing now. It's we call it the Wednesday night group because I started teaching every Wednesday night because I closed the school and I came to my garage. And Wednesday night I did that because I had friends and stuff that had a band and we'd go afterwards, had a place to go and have a few beers and stuff. So Wednesday night was, and I could also rent a place for a while on Wednesday night. So that was basically it.
So, looking forward and seeing how, there's still a lot of people teaching Jeet Kune Do that I don't think really know it, or there's all types of different versions of JKD. Some of that's good because they're from different people that train with Bruce Lee, so you have a different version of the picture. But
there's kind of a kickboxing JKD, where they had the left lead and they're doing kickboxing and stuff. The idea, I think, that has kind of been lost is the idea of intercepting. And intercepting with power. So to do that is designed from the Western fencing. In Western fencing, you don't stand with your foil in your weak hand, your foil's in your strong hand, because you're more dexterous, can use it better. And so what you try to do then is we try to make it more like fencing, where we're standing with our strong hand forward, and we're using our front hand like a foil or a saber. And we're trying to knock a guy out when he comes at you. He's going to leave part of his body open. We want to intercept him and end the fight as soon as possible. We don't want to dick around doing a lot of movement around and dancing and shit.
Yeah. Where would you like to see JKD going from here?
I like to see it go to the basics. Hopefully, this book, Essence of Jeet Kune Do, will give some guys an idea of thinking about how to approach it. It's about what you throw away. You can't. No point in having 20 different techniques to defend against a jab. It just is kind of why did you do that? It's like when I was teaching, learning about different martial arts, the more blocks you had for a certain technique, the higher belt you were. when you actually needed the less is better, not the more. Okay, so that's basically the idea of that. So I think with now that I'm retired, I know that Jeremy and Dennis and Vince Raimondi are putting together the organization, try to keep it going by teaching the basic elements of Jeet Kune Do. So hopefully that'll work and people will be interested in it. And I fully support it. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.